very big challenge at this moment. At that time, we understand this challenge. We said, okay, if there is a good method we can address this challenge, then we come up with a solution to set up the cybersecurity center in Banbury.
Okay. So it was set up uniquely, but other countries have concerns about the cybersecurity of having Huawei as a vendor. New Zealand has recently said that it's regarded as a significant network security risk. There is now the obvious, very prominent example of US sanctions. So let me just understand, in terms of the US sanctions, what will be the effect of the US sanctions on Huawei's ability to operate?
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I would like to say all the security allegations from American and some countries actually that are totally not true. Huawei actually, we comply with the highest security standard. And during the past 30 years, there was no any cybersecurity incident from Huawei's network. We kept a very strong track record globally since we operate in more than 170 countries. Regarding the new American sanction, what I would like to say, this is definitely unjustified, changed by the American about the foreign product rules. This impact, I think, is not, because it takes immediately quite impact. It's a complicated situation. This will be related to the semiconductor industry, and we need to work with our customers and partners to evaluate the full impact. It's still too early to draw any conclusion. But what I can say is Huawei has the capability to support gigabit broadband with the 5G and the fiber solution, because we are ready to support, and we are here more than 20 years with the UK for the broadband deployment.
But the sanctions are in force already, and obviously this has implications for countries and companies that rely on Huawei for their systems. So you must have an assessment. You must be able to provide, I would have thought, some advice or assurance to your customers as to what the implications are, because they will need to know now, surely.
Yes, you're right, Mr. Chairman. And we have already submitted our initial assessment to our customers and to NCIC. And the initial solution is within short term, there are no impact on Huawei's supply capability to the UK's 5G and fiber solution. And we have already prepared for the 5 years spare pair for making sure the UK's current network, existing network, will be not impacted by the sanction. That's the short-term and current situation. We are working closely with our customers and partners for evaluating the long-term impact. It takes time, and currently we need to wait the full details be confirmed by the sanction, then we can come out with a solution with our suppliers and partners.
Can you explain why you don't think that there will be any short-term impact?
I'll just give you an example. So it depends on global business. And we serve all the top telecom operators globally. And we provide a solution which we can serve more than 30 billion population globally. It's 1/3 of the population globally. And with this volume, for example, in China, this year we are going to deliver 500,000 base stations for the 5G. And in the UK, because of the volume, the UK, with the government decision on January, 35% market share for Huawei's 5G in the UK, it will be maximum 20,000 base stations deployed. So we have capacity, because the telco business is not a supermarket business. So we need to have the long-term planning. So before we sign the contract, we need to make sure we can manufacture the equipment for our customer make sure we can provide the solution. It's not we need to store just for 1 week like a supermarket. So it's definitely planning. So that's we have the capacity to support UK's market.
In operation, the question in many ways is whether they're going to be tightened further. So in that event, even if you have a short-term ability to cope, what will you do in the next few weeks and months?
You are right. You mentioned a very important point. As I said, so we are working very hard with our partners and to evaluate the full impact and the story for the long-term impact. So definitely, because Huawei as a business, we have already set up the business continuity management since 10 years ago. That was started from BT business. So what does it mean, the business continuity management? So all the components in Huawei solution, we don't allow there's only one source from supplier, even internal supplier. For example, one chipset, if globally there's only one solution, one source of supply, we must choose the second one. Or if there are no second one, we need to develop the second one. So that's why we have very resilient supply chain because of the strong business continuity management since 10 years ago. And we need to continue to enhance our business continuity management for making sure the long term we have the more resilient capability to support our global customers, which include the UK customers.
It seems surprising that a company as well resourced as Huawei, and knowing that these sanctions and the prospect of them have been known for quite considerable time, that you wouldn't have more developed plans. Do you have those plans but don't want to disclose them as to what the resilience of the company would be with respect to suppliers in the medium term? Do you have those plans, or are you saying that you've yet to work them up?
Dear Chairman, as I mentioned, it's a very complex situation, and we are evaluating the whole impact and working on, because the Americans are going to confirm the detailed rules by the middle of this month, and this is why we are working closely to see the details. And we are working, and if we have the plan, we definitely, because we are very transparent, we are very collaborative, we would like to show that to the UK government and our customers.
Do you expect the US policy to change if the administration in the US were to change?
As I said, the US change any rules definitely is unjustified. We don't know what is going on, what is going to happen from America. As a company, what we need to do is to make sure we have the resilient system to serve our customer with the best possible technologies.
Have you made an assessment as to whether you expect these the sanctions regime to be permanent, or do you think it is contingent on the current administration being in office?
As a company, we are not in a position to judge what American is going to do from now on.
I see. Okay, let me turn to my colleagues, starting with Graham Stringer.
Good morning. Can I ask Mr. Thompson what Huawei's response is to the Steele report, the report done by Christopher Steele?
First of all, we have not seen the report. We've seen the press coverage of that report, and we refute the content of what we have seen. We have rejected the content of that report.
You've not seen it, but you reject the content.
We rejected what we've seen in the press.
Right. The basic thrust of the report.
I would like to add one sentence about this, your question. And definitely we see the report actually is untruth, is totally without evidence. And we reserve the right to take any legal actions if applied once we see the full story.
Right, thank you. If I can move on then, at the present time, I think there is a consensus around the world that China is not a good global citizen. I can list all the problems there are with actions China has taken, from Hong Kong to India to locking up more than 1 million Muslims. Do you think that morality and judgments about how China is behaving internationally should form part of anybody's assessment of whether to give Huawei a contract?
I feel that Huawei should be judged on what Huawei does, and Huawei is a good global citizen, contributing to communications networks in 170 countries and providing communications to 1/3 of the planet. So I think we should be judged on how we behave, not how China behaves.
I would like to add one point. So Huawei is an independent company, 100% owned by its employee. We are independent from any government, which includes Chinese government. So we are not in the position to judge what any government, their political position as a company. So we wish the world will have a stable business environment. That's obviously what we want. So we want to have the stable business environment in which we can do business with our customers. Thank you.
Thank you. You'll forgive me for not accepting that. China is not a state like us. And it just simply that if China wanted Huawei to do something, you would have the ability to resist that. China has broken an international treaty when it comes to Hong Kong. So if you can respond to that, I just simply don't accept that Huawei operates in China in a way in Finland. The relationship between the Chinese state and companies operating in China is completely different. I mean, there is no credibility to that answer, I'm afraid.
But Huawei operates in the UK as our competitors operate in the UK under UK law. I've been in telecoms for over 25 years and worked for BT in terms of the UK incumbent telecoms provider, and I've seen many different vendors, and what I see in terms of the way Huawei behaves in the UK is consistent with UK laws and consistent with what you'd expect from a company providing technology to the industry.
The question really isn't about how Huawei has behaved in this country since it's had the contracts with the 2G, 3G and 4G networks. The question really is if the Chinese government wanted to behave differently in this country or elsewhere in the world, would it have the power to resist this? And the evidence of looking at a very centralised country like China is that it wouldn't.
Huawei's been here for 20 years.
Yes, you made the point about your understanding on China. So as a company, as I said, we are independent company, so independent from any government, which include our operation in China. So what I would like to say is we cannot judge and manage or control any government perspective. And what we can do is to comply with the laws and regulations in all countries we operate. And in that case, you said that case, if there are any government want to force Huawei to do something which harm our customers' benefit, and we will say no, or either. So we would rather shut down the company. As our founder said, we don't compromise the customer benefits.
Just a final point. Again, I don't think this is controversial. The Chinese state has had a history of stealing intellectual property. Do you believe that if we allow Huawei into 5G, that this country will be more vulnerable to a cyber attack?
Mrs. Zhang?
Okay, if I may
Dr.
answer
Zhang,
this
yes.
question.
Dr.
Obviously, there is no evidence to support the claim that if Huawei build the 5G in this country, and that you will attract more cyber attack, and that's absolutely not possible. And Huawei has been leading in the intellectual property in 5G area. And by the end of 2019, Huawei has held more than 85,000 active patents, and of which 13,000 were granted in the US, and over 88,000 patent families were granted in Europe. So we are leading in the technology in 5G, and the cyber attack and intellectual property theft, we don't really see how it's linked together, and we have the country's best interest in our heart, and we cannot possibly link these two together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. I'll come to Mark Logan, my colleague, next. But just to pick up on something that Mr. Thompson said to Graham Stringer. Mr. Thompson, you said that in the UK, Huawei operates as other companies do, and you cited your experience of BT. Are employees and directors of Huawei in the UK free to express their views?
Yes, very much so. Yeah, I mean, we have a management team in the UK like any other UK organisation, and we are free to express our views, yes.
So what's your view of the new security law in Hong Kong?
Okay, I'm a telecoms executive. I've worked in telecoms all my life. My role is to enable our customers, who are the carriers, to provide communications faster and cheaper. I don't have a view.
So you don't have a view?
Yeah.
As a personal view, you're free to, as you've just said, as any citizen in the UK would, but you don't have any view on something that's quite germane to your commercial international prospects, I would have thought. You have no view.
You've invited me here, Mr. Chairman, as a representative of Huawei. I represent the rules of different countries.
But it's relevant, isn't it, Mr. Thompson, in that you have said that actually the behaviour, the way that Huawei operates conforms to the norms of the countries in which it operates, and in this country, as you said yourself, people are able to express themselves. But so you're able to give an opinion, but you don't have one, or you don't think it would be consistent with your role in Huawei to make a statement?
I don't think it'd be consistent with my role in Huawei in this forum.
I see. Mr. Zhang?
Yes, Chairman.
Do you have a view of the new security law in Hong Kong?
As Jerry said, so as a company, so we are not in the position to comment on that political agenda. So as a company, what we want to do is to work with our customer for making sure the UK will have the best digital network here.
As an individual, are you able to comment on that?
Yes, I can, but not as this hearing. I think I will see, because I'm the vice president of Huawei, and I could share my opinion probably offline with you.
I see. Okay, Dr. Zhao?
Similar situation here. I don't think my personal view is of interest here to this public hearing.
I think there'd be great interest in it, but your response is clear. Let me turn to Mark Logan.
Thank you, Chair. And Zhang 先生、姚博士和 Mr. Thompson 早上好 Good morning. Welcome to the Select Committee. My question actually is firstly just following up on what my colleague Graham was asking, and I think a better way to ask this is Western governments often make requests to local tech companies for sensitive data or intelligence sharing. Would it not make Huawei's argument and credibility easier and stronger if you confirm that there's a chance you'll provide data when asked by the Chinese or indeed any other government?
I think the first thing to say is that we are a telecoms equipment provider. We don't touch customer data. We actually don't run networks. So we provide the equipment. So if you take the analogy of a house builder, we provide the plumbing. Someone else builds a house and someone else lives in the house. The plumbing is essential for the house to operate. So it's not our role to operate the network or to touch customer data. So we don't see that, but we have made it crystal clear that we would not interfere with data, even if we had the opportunity of doing so.
And then, so why has the National Cybersecurity Centre in the UK determined that Huawei is actually a high-risk vendor?
So Huawei arrived in the UK 20 years ago and was, we don't like the expression, by the way, as you might expect, high-risk vendor, but because we had no market share and we weren't known outside China, we were considered to be high risk at that time. Since then, we've contributed to the UK network and helped increase the bandwidth available on the fixed line by 10-fold and mobile by 26-fold, and reduced the costs by a third. In fact, we're a third cheaper than the US and 5-fold cheaper than it was 10 years ago. That's our contribution to the UK.
And just finally, Mr. Zhang, if due to legislation and other constraints and advice by the NCSC, if Huawei was in the short to medium term banished from the UK networks, how much of a kind of failure or a loss would Huawei see that as not being able to access the UK market? Or is the UK not even in the top 10 or top 20 markets globally for Huawei looking to the future?
Thank you, Ms. Logan. And I would like to say it from this way. And because we have been in UK for 20 years. This year is Huawei's 20 years in the UK. And we started with BT in a very early stage. So what we have done, so we have BT to build their fixed broadband since 2006. And we deployed 70,000 street cabinets in the UK. And also we started work with EE for the 4G since 2012. So we haven't done any evaluation. As you mentioned, there is more restriction from UK's government for restricting Huawei's role in the UK. But what we can see is that Huawei is a great contributor to the UK. And based on the Oxford Economics report last year, Huawei contributed to the UK's GDP with £1.7 billion in 2018. And we created direct and indirect job opportunity is 26,000 job opportunities. And also we procured and investment in the UK, say between 2012 and 2018, is more than £3 billion here in the UK. So that's what we have done here. Apart from network, we invest, we procured, and we create job opportunity in the UK. We hope we have the opportunity to work with operators to enhance the UK's position for the digital broadband, which is very critical for the UK's economic recovery and for your innovation.
Mr. Zhang, just to follow up on that, so that's the benefit that, as you see it, for the UK, but for Huawei, is the UK a top 10 market, or looking to the next 20 to 30 years, is the high growth markets in Southeast Asia, in Africa, and even Latin America much more important to Huawei? And if you lose out in the UK, it doesn't really matter in the end.
Let me give an example, Mr. Lawyer. The telecom market actually is a population-related market. So the more population, the size of market is bigger. That's why you mentioned South Africa and other countries. It's definitely also depend on the level of your economy, but it's quite important to relate to the population. The UK is a very strict market for Huawei, and because the UK telecom operator like BT and Vodafone, we always lead the industry to have the highest standard and the strictest requirement for the vendors to make sure the UK will keep the leading position for serving the citizen here in the UK. And the size of market is not the one criteria to evaluate the importance of the market. That's what I want to say.
I'm finished. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mark. Perhaps just on this, Mr. Zhang, would you describe what would be the consequences felt by UK consumers if Huawei were to be removed from the UK network?
Dear Chairman, I don't have the detailed idea about what you said if UK government have that kind of conclusion. But what I learned during my working experience in the UK more than 10 years, and I definitely believe the UK government always takes an evidence-based approach to make decision. The evidence-based decision is very important. I believe the UK government will do continually for the future decisions. And the UK, as I mentioned, we work with BT and Vodafone from 20 years ago and to build the UK network. And until the year before last year, you can see in the UK network, there's still the 2G network in place. And it's not just the question, you can remove the technology from the network immediately because it's a very complicated situation. The network is not like one computer and another computer. You can replace them separately. So it's a network and will impact the services and will impact the customer invest for their 10 years asset in the UK.
So would it be something that was experienced? Would the person in the street notice the difference, or is that hidden from view? Is it an impact on the businesses that are your customers?
As I said, so I can share with you the report from third party, and Mobile UK have concluded last year. So any partially or full restriction on Huawei's involvement in UK's 5G will cause the 18 to 24 months delay of the 5G deployment in the UK. And the Assembly, as another organization, they conclude, and the 1 year delay of the gigabit broadband will cause 9 billion pounds of the UK's productivity benefits.
That's their view. Is that
29 billion?
Is that your view as well? That was a separate report, but does that conform with your assessment?
Dear Chairman, I'm not good at economics, so I trust the third-party evaluations.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn to my colleague Chris Clarkson and then Carol Monaghan.
Thank you, Chair. I actually want to pick up on a comment that Mr. Thompson made, that Huawei is providing infrastructure rather than networks. You gave the analogy of plumbing. Really, in a more accurate sense, you're actually providing doors, in particular back doors. So I wanted you to explain for the panel the difference between the network topology with 4G and 5G, specifically how switching takes place within the network.
So let me answer the question about the doors first, and then I'll ask Dr. Wenbing Yao to comment on the topology, because she is the expert on that. we are probably the most inspected company in the world, certainly as far in the UK, from its products point of view. And there is no evidence of malicious backdoors in our products, despite years of true evaluation. So I would keep to the plumbing. We provide the pipes and the plumbing. But maybe Dr. Wenbing Yao, you could talk to the architectural discussion.
Yes, I'd love to. I think at the moment, and what we have seen in terms of the cybersecurity and the security level between 4G and 5G, we think 5G can at least provide the same level and safer and more secure network, and that is certified by the international standard organization 3GPP, and that has been reiterated by 3GPP secretary many times in the media and the conferences. And obviously there are a lot of things about backdoor, and that has already been clearly stated by the NCSC, as Jerry pointed out and Victor pointed out, that there is no evidence on the defect that the NCSC pointed out that's linked to the Chinese state interference. And the network itself, when we build the 5G network, the UK operators choose to use the so-called non-standalone architecture, which will you build the 5G together with the 4G. And so we don't see a material change in terms of cybersecurity that the 5G network will create a more cybersecurity risk than 4G.
Thank you, Doctor. I just wanted to pick up on that because in 2019, the Huawei Security Evaluation Center Oversight Board found that there were significant technical issues around Huawei's engineering processes and that no material progress had been made in remediating some of the issues reported the previous year. So with that in light, why have you failed to make any improvements, and how genuinely secure is that network?
So in 2018, Huawei announced a $2 billion investment in improving our software engineering capabilities. And we fully accept that good security is built on good software engineering. And as we move from a more hardware-defined world to a software-defined world, we as a business need to improve, as all providers need to improve their software and software engineering. That is a 5-year project, a program, and we would expect to see some material improvements probably next year. Some goodness will be coming through this year, but we would expect to see some material improvements in our software engineering next year.
Well, I think you're actually drilling down on the point that I was trying to make, Mr. Thompson. A 5G network is a lot more software reliant than hardware reliant. If that software doesn't pass rigor, if it has any kind of flaws, then the network is not secure, is it?
So our software is evaluated by the evaluation centre here in the UK, and it is now in the network. So we believe it is secure. Some of the older products that we are maintaining in the network, we need to continue to improve and produce patches for those. But no, we're confident in the security of our 5G network. The overall architecture actually is more secure than previous generations in itself.
Can I just add one more point here, Mr. Clarkson? And I think in addition to what we have done on the software engineering transformation program, our product line has actively seek the international certificate, especially the security certificate on our product. And we have obtained the world first CE and CC and EAL4 plus certificate, and that's the first among everybody, all the other vendors in the world, and that proves that our 5G RAN product is secure. And also our core product code has been evaluated by very well-known German company. The code quality, the conclusion they give is very good. We are also one of the first pass the GSMA's and NESA's audit process to prove that our product development process satisfy the requirements, 21 requirements of the GSMA's security product development process. So I think our core product are also going through the same sort of international security certificate process exercise. So I think the concerns around Huawei product quality, it has been reported by the media, but internally Huawei, we believe our product's security is actually very good, if not better than the other vendors.
Who issues those certificates?
Sorry?
Who issues those certificates?
Who issued?
Yeah, so which body issues these security certificates, these international standards?
And it is very well known CC certificate, and I will tell you the society system is a very top international and well recognized security society, international society. I'll give you the full name of that organization. But all people in the cybersecurity world recognize it and accept it.
Can I just add that the UK does have its own processes and its own standards, which are arguably higher than any other country, and we're committed to the process that the UK has put in place for Huawei and for improving the standards of security across the whole industry, which are different to some of the other countries in Europe.
So one very last question then. Which do you place a premium on, cybersecurity or commercial viability?
Cybersecurity. We wouldn't be viable without a secure product.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Sorry.
Yes, Dr. Zhang?
Yeah, sorry. My mind went blind just now about UCC. Just want to come back to you about the CC stands for Common Criteria, and that is for the is an international standard for communication security certificate, and so that is an international standard. Just want to answer your question earlier on.
Thank you, Dr. Zhang. We'd be grateful if you drop us a line with the details
yes, of course,
that certification. Thank you very much, Chris. We're going to go to Carol Monaghan, then Erin Bell, and then Dawn Butler.
Thanks very much, Chair. Can I ask our witnesses what sort of information, customer, consumer information, is a mobile phone provider able to get about their customers, or able to collect about their customers?
Shall I start? So I think we have to recognise we have two distinctive businesses here. One is supplying the carriers, and the other is providing the mobile handsets that you would buy in the high street typically through a carrier. The carrier business, we have no access to customer data. We do not run the networks. So I think that should be clear. We've said that a few times. The mobile phone business, which is the handset business, smartphone business that we also operate here in the UK, would have access to some customer data. And that is managed very carefully, but it's a completely separate business and it's consumer data.
Okay, what sort of data would that be? That's sort of buying patterns, Google searches, stuff like that?
No, it would be, if the customer signs up to a Huawei application store, then we would have the basic data on the customer for them to make consumer purchases.
Surely you would have basic data on, for example, the customer's movements?
No, that would be data that would be held by the carriers, because the carrier runs the network. We would not know where the customer is, the location of the customer.
Okay, and if I can ask then, and this was touched upon earlier by my colleague Graham Stringer regarding human rights, because the UK has a very strong record on human rights, and it's very difficult for us then to operate when we know we're working with somebody who has a less robust record on human rights. Now, there's been fairly serious allegations made regarding Huawei, particularly in Xinjiang province with the Uyghur population. Now, in that situation, I understand that the allegation is that Huawei was providing a lot of information about data about customers and their actions, movements, and their activities on 4G and potentially 5G. Should we be concerned about that?
Mr.
Zhang. Mr. Zhang. Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, hear me. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for your question. As we mentioned many times, we as Huawei, we provide telecom infrastructure equipment to our customers, the telco operators, either in China or in any other countries. And we don't own any. Once we deliver the equipment to our customer, the customer will own the network. They will operate and run the network. So Huawei don't own any customer information from those networks. And it's still, in any country, we provide the telecom equipment is a pipe equipment. There is no data storage in this equipment. So, and also we don't have the access to this data. We don't run the network. The same in China and in the UK.
Okay, if then there was some sort of conflict of interest between the UK customer and the Chinese state, where would Huawei's loyalties lie?
We will comply, if we operate in the UK, we 100% comply with UK law and the regulations.
I'm asking about loyalties. Where would Huawei's loyalties lie?
We loyal to our customer, always, and we begin.
Okay, and the final thing I'd like to ask about is Huawei's equipment. Is the equipment interoperable with other organisations that would be hoping to operate within the Open RAN?
Can I start this question, then Jeremy and Dr. Jiao can add their comments. And yes, the telecom communication industry is a very standard-based industry. So that's why we have the multi-vendor environment in all countries. In one network, there will be multi-vendor. The equipment can work together based on the international standard. That's where we are about the telecom industry. And regarding the Open RAN actually is one of the implementation methods for the 5G. And Huawei definitely, we are the technologically neutral for implementing the 5G. And currently, the Open RAN compared with the single RAN, and the Open RAN still have far behind the performance because Open RAN has a high power consumption and lower performance, much behind the single RAN. Is about 3 to 5 years behind the single RAN. So that's why we are voting the Open RAN as one of the choice. Once the Open RAN is ready, have the compatible performance as a single RAN, we believe Huawei will be one of the best supplier with the Open RAN as well.
But at the moment, it can't deal with Open RAN. Its equipment is not interoperable.
Because the Open RAN, as I mentioned, the telecommunication very standard-based solution. The single RAN all based on the 3GPP standards. The Open RAN currently don't have the standard. If there are no standard, no one can guarantee the interoperability.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Can I
you.
just say we do interoperate. We do the protocols which allow us to work with other vendors. And in fact, the nature of telecommunications network, it's a team game with multiple vendors. And that's evidenced in the fact that our radio access network, which we do operate here in the UK, it interworks with other core networks. And so, we do interoperate. We interoperate with the way the standards were set up. Open RAN is new. We are neutral to it, but depending on how it develops, depending on how we interoperate more further, I should say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me go to Aaron Bell, then Dawn Butler.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, witnesses, for your time this morning. Mr. Zhang, returning to the recent US sanctions, following these sanctions, who will Huawei be using to supply its chip technology in future?
Thank you, Ms. Bell. And as I told dear Chairman earlier on, and we are working on the long-term impact from these new restrictions. And we are not in the position to have the full plan. So once we have that plan, we will share with you what's the solution for replying to the new restriction from America.
But there isn't any company that can supply leading-edge chips apart from using American technology, is there?
I don't have the conclusion at this moment. As I said, it's still too early to draw any conclusion because the American rules haven't fully and formally confirmed until mid of this month.
I mean, you say it's too early, but unfortunately for you, perhaps, Britain and other countries are going to have to make decisions very soon about the future. And unless we have confidence in your supply chain and the quality assurance of that supply chain and the security checks you are able to perform on that, then we aren't going to be able to proceed with using your company as a supplier for 5G, are we?
I understand, Mr. Bell, and we understand the UK, the NCIC is taking the review on this impact. We are working closely with them and our customers, and we addressed, as I mentioned, was there no impact on Huawei to supply the UK's 5G and the fiber solution. And for the long-term solution, as I said, we definitely will work with them to give the solution once the situation is clear, once we confirm all the details in the next step.
Can I add?
Sorry, yeah, Dr. Yao, did you want to add?
Yeah, I just want one more point. I think because the FDPR is targeting on Huawei's own chipset manufacturing, design capability, not design capability, the chipset. But company also have the capability of using the other companies' chipsets, such as Qualcomm, such as MediaTek. And in fact, I saw in the media yesterday that Qualcomm and Media's chipset, there is a market anticipation that the price of Qualcomm and MediaTek's chipset is going to go up because Huawei's high silicon chipset is supply will have some impact on that. So it's on the other hand prove that to take out Huawei from the market, and it actually have a detrimental impact on the fair competition and detrimental to the consumers' benefit.
Thank you, Dr. Ye. Yes, that's the argument that was, I think, accepted in January, but I think the US sanctions fundamentally have changed that. I mean, if I can quote New Street Research, is they've said, without leading-edge chips, Huawei cannot sell competitive networking equipment, and there is no alternative to fabricators powered by US technology to manufacture such chips. Aren't these US sanctions fundamentally game-changing for you as a company, potentially worldwide if you're not able to provide a competitive product, but specifically in terms of our security concerns here in the UK?
They're certainly not helpful. We were put on the entity list last May. We communicated with our customers and the UK government, say, give us a few weeks and we'll work out what this means, but we feel confident we'll find mitigations for that. After 6 months or so, we were able to confirm that mitigations are in place, and here we are 12 months later, and there has not been an interruption in supply. This, as you say, is very different. It goes to the heart of the chip design and to some of the competitive advantages that Huawei has. But we do have resilience in our supply chain. We feel confident that we will have mitigations, maybe not all the mitigations in place later on this year, but we would just ask for time to respond in the same way as we did last year, to do the analysis, to understand the supply chain, and to identify the mitigations and to share those with the UK government. So the short term, we can supply our customers. 5G is not an issue in the short term. The existing network is not an issue. We just need time to evaluate what the rules mean. And given that the rules have not even been published yet or finalized, when they are finalized, we will be able to assess what that means and come back to you as quickly as possible.
Thank you. You obviously haven't got a preferred supplier sorted out then, but if you do, would you make, how will we and other countries be able to examine that supply chain in the way that we can at present, which is what's given us the confidence at the moment? If your supplier is potentially a Chinese firm, for example, how will we know, how will we be able to trust the quality assurance and the security checks at the manufacture of those chips?
Sure, we really appreciate that, and the transparency in terms of who the alternatives are, and they're not just Chinese. There are European companies who are also in this space. We will be able to share those with you, but that'll take a few more weeks. Okay,
and I suppose just to wrap up this section then, I mean, it has been reported, and you'll obviously have read them, that the National Cybersecurity Centre is likely to recommend that on the basis of these American sanctions, their assessment of Huawei's future viability in the UK has changed, and that Huawei products will not be secure enough. So what's your, obviously you've asked for more time, but what's your response to that if that is the conclusion that we're going to see from the NCSC? Well, when the rules are finalised, we will have a better view in terms of their implication. Clearly we've been working on this since the draft rules were published, but we would just ask for more time. We've been here for 20 years. We've been a key contributor to the UK. We actually buy more from the UK than we sell to the UK. So the components that go into our products come from the UK. We would just ask just for more time to be able to make that assessment. And if our mitigations aren't satisfactory, then fine. But there isn't a burning bridge here. We can supply our customers with their orders and support the existing network with spares. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Dawn Butler.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Zhang, I just wanted to go back to something you said earlier about the evaluation process and that Huawei's highly evaluated. Do you agree that when it comes to software and programming, that it's nigh impossible to identify any form of rogue coding software or Trojan software?
Thank you, Mrs. Butler. And I would like to say, so the UK, we have worked closely with NCSC to set up the evaluation center in Banbury with the highest experienced person, British, the debate level. So they have already evaluated Huawei's solution during the past 10 years. And as Jeremy mentioned, so we have already started our transformation program since 2018 to invest $2 billion for improving the software capability and the architecture to address this challenge.
Okay, let me maybe put it another way in terms of using Jeremy's analogy in regards to infrastructure and plumbing. Most people are just concerned with turning on the tap and getting water. If you're the person that is putting in the plumbing and the pipes and the infrastructure, you could indeed put plumbing connected to next door that I wouldn't know about unless maybe my water meter went through the roof. Or you could put plumbing in for future homes that I wouldn't know about until those homes are built. Is that not correct?
What I would say is that the UK has the best view of Huawei software and Huawei's hardware, and has confirmed that there's no evidence of Chinese malfeasance, Chinese government malfeasance. So, we would say, you know us really well. You know where our pipes, well, actually, you know what our pipes look like. So I think that's why you have that reassurance from the HCSEC that, and the experts there, that it is a secure network. It needs to improve in terms of its software engineering. We accept that, and we've got a program to address that. But no, we are safe to do business with.
Okay, and can I just ask one more question, Chair? Huawei is 99% owned by a trade union committee. Who sits on that committee and how are they chosen and selected? I'm not sure who can answer that.
Mr. Zhang.
I just give you a very quick update about Huawei's governance structure. So you touch this point. And as I mentioned before, Huawei is a private company, 100% owned by employees. So how many shareholders in the company? As current the number is 104,572 shareholders in the company. So we have in total we have 190,000 employees globally in more than 170 countries, but in which nearly half of them have the shares of the company. And our founder, Mr. Zhang, he only has 1.04% of the shares of this company. So you mentioned the trading union. Actually, that's just the name. The structure here is the shareholding employees have the right to vote, to have the representative commission, which consists of 115 representatives. They have the right to vote the board directors and the supervisory board in the management team. So actually, this is our structure, the ownership structure. There is no any third party or any other people who are not working in Huawei have the shares in this company.
So all of the employees own the company, like
100%.
100%. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Can I ask Mr. Thompson, are you one of these employee owners?
No, I'm not. The 100 or so thousand owners are Chinese. There is a scheme for non-Chinese people who participate, but we don't have voting rights. But I have to say, there's more democracy in Huawei than any other company I've ever worked in terms of voting for the leadership team. I just unfortunately do not participate in that.
And no one in the overseas operations does? Is that what
outside
you were
China.
saying? Right.
No one outside China.
Well, why would that be, Mrs. Zhang?
Yeah, there is a company law in China to say to have the limitations on the shareholders' citizenship in China. So we come out a solution for incentive in our overseas employees to have we call the TUP program, to have a similar incentive mechanism as our internal shareholder program.
But not in decision making, not contributing to democracy in decision making.
Not the voting in the shareholding system.
I see. We're almost out of time, and I'm grateful for the time you spent with us. Just a couple of questions finally from me. Australia has been interpreted as having a de facto ban on Huawei and other Chinese suppliers. Yet, I think you yourself told the previous emanation of this committee in the previous Parliament, Mr. Zhang, that Huawei remains a major network equipment provider in Australia. Is that still the case?
Mr. Chairman, Australia and Australia have done their decision making not allowing Huawei to participate there. They call the NBA program. It's National Broadband Network. I could see the exact year. It's many years ago. And since that decision, the NBA took about 10 years, having started and finished that program. So that's what we know from very beginning. And Australia, we still have the team there to support our customer for their existing network, 4G and 3G, as I know.
Right. But that is declining and will be at some point removed, do you expect? Is that the trajectory that's taking place in Australia?
I don't have that detail. I'm not sure if Jeremy has that detail. So I don't have detail. And what I know is that we are supporting our customer there.
Okay. Mr. Thompson?
I don't have the detail on Australia, but we do have a customer base there that we support. Telecommunications infrastructure is put in typically for a decade or so, and we will support our customers in the 3G, 4G, 2G, and whatever fixed network we have in Australia.
Thank you. And just finally, in terms of your knowledge of the Chinese market, what is the extent of participation by overseas vendors in China?
Thank you, Chairman. And actually, the Chinese telco market is a very open market, a free and fair competition market. And there are all the players in China, same as in the UK. And there are Huawei, there are Ericsson, there are Nokia, and other players, and also the Cisco. They all in China to build our telecommunication infrastructure in China based on the fairly commercial competition.
Thank you. We've overstayed our time with you. We're very grateful for your evidence. We need to turn to our next panel, but can I thank you for giving evidence to the committee today. The committee is considering Britain's future capability in telecommunications, of which 5G is an important part. There are some imminent decisions that we know are going to be taken here. Our inquiry is for the longer term as well as the short term, and we're very grateful for the information you supplied today. Thank you very much indeed. Order. We'll suspend the committee just for a few minutes to arrange the next panel of witnesses.